Hello and welcome to Core Finance. I'm Matt Brown. I'm joined today by Bill Blain, who is strategist at Mint Partners. How are you today, Bill?
Jolly good, tickety-boo, fine and dandy, all these positive things.
Fantastic. Keeping active in the market still?
Oh yeah, it's still very active markets. We have an absolute feeding frenzy has been going on in the bond markets. We still have the stock markets in the ascendant, although the last couple of days have been interesting. 4 days of lower finishes in the Dow. That's unusual since the summer.
Fantastic.
And then, of course, we've got Europe to worry about. We've got the German elections. And then, of course, we have yesterday's classic comments out of Brighton.
Well, there's some of the comments coming from the shadow chancellor that, we're going to have a run on the pound if, and it's a big if, let's say, we have a Labour government next. Is that good planning or bad PR management?
Well, in fact, it's very good that Labour recognise that markets are responsible to politics. But I can't help thinking it's like, when we were kids and we used to play with our toy soldiers and we thought we were wargaming. But of course, we have absolutely no idea what a real battlefield would be like. And I think what the comments just about wargaming options highlights the lack of knowledge about the way that the financial markets work. But let's actually think about what he said, that there will be a run on the pound if a Labour government gets elected. That we know is an absolute nonsense. There will be a run on the pound the moment that Theresa May's government collapses. That's the point you get the run on the pound. It's even conceivable that you'd end up with a relief rally when a new Corbyn government gets elected. What I think Labour have recognised by highlighting this now, well ahead of a likely election, is that they need to go out with policies and address them. At the moment, the whole city, of course, is naturally hostile to anything that Labour, it doesn't matter how bad or how good any policy Labour proposes is, we're naturally hostile to it. We cannot conceive the idea that Labour actually might be addressing some of the things that need to be done in this country. So if Labour takes its time, goes out and engages, and comes out with positive comments, you could actually see this situation turn round. I mean, let's consider their comments about PFI spending, unwinding everything. Well, to be honest, that's maybe not a terribly bad idea if it's done in the right way. This country needs infrastructure spending, we need education spending, and we particularly need spending on building a digital economy. If Labour was to do the smart thing and go out and do these things in perhaps the way that would have happened under Blair 20 years ago, we could be looking at a sterling rally when we get rid of the government bunch of incompetents and replace them with something. But at the moment, it looks like we get something worse. That situation will change, but it was a momentary moment of amusement yesterday afternoon when he had the wit to acknowledge that Labour might not be good for sterling.
Understood. And speaking about the current government, and let's look at Europe. We're in the thick of Brexit negotiations.
Sorry, did I just flatline there?
It's Theresa May, and we've had senior Tories saying, maybe she should step down and walk away without a deal. Picking through it, what does that actually mean, really, for the markets? I think is the key thing. The markets just waiting and seeing, or we're pricing in a soft, hard Brexit, or does the market just get on and do what it does regardless?
To be honest, I'm not sure the market's that particularly concerned. Brexit's going to happen. We can see uncertainty within the UK economy because of it, but that spells opportunity as well. The news that we read in the papers, for instance, in the Tory graph I read this morning, something about Brussels had actually dictated her speech to her. Yada, 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 yon, who actually cares? I mean, we do need to get somewhere. It's clear we need to get some kind of Brexit agreement, but we'll be watching for the details within that. I think what's more interesting is to understand Brexit in the context of what's going on within Europe just now. And the big factor in Europe isn't Theresa May and Brexit or the UK. The big factor is what's going to happen in Germany.
Yes.
Now, the elections in Germany over the weekend are very dangerous, far more dangerous, I think, than the market has priced in. It is going to take weeks rather than days, potentially months,
yeah.
for a new coalition to be formed. That coalition is going to be very, very weak, even more weak than Theresa May's alliance with the Unionists in the north. It's going to be diametrically opposed on many policies. You've got to remember that the Free Democrats are about the closest thing that Germany has to a sensible, serious anti-European party. The Greens, of course, will go along with anything they think is a good idea as long as it suits them. And the CDU themselves looking distinctly fractured, tired, and exhausted. If we get to the stage where we cannot get an agreement on the next German coalition, I think it's highly likely we might see Merkel forced to withdraw, which would be a complete and utter shock to the system. But what does all that mean, the uncertainty in Germany? I mean, Germany's got its own issues, it's got its own industrial policy issues, it's got its own employment issues, it's got a massive integration issue with immigration to contend with, and it's now got this political issue to deal with. That means the last thing they're going to be paying any attention to is the kind of stuff that Macron, the French premier, came out with last night about closer European integration. I think at the last moment he actually pulled many of the things he was going to say about the need to step forward and have full integration, full union. He did come up with issues such as common European defence, but he stepped away from many of the more European issues about closer integration. And I think the reason for that is he's realised that that is not going to play well in a fractured Germany at the moment. Now, this is all happening at a time when it's very possible we have the next series of European crises coming. Now, for the last 10 years, European crisis is nailed on every 2.5 weeks. Something else comes up in Europe that you got to panic about. Yep. And the ones that we've got coming up just now, of course, are what happens in Germany. What's going to happen with the Italian elections that are coming up? That's going to be fascinating. I think we're all underestimating what's going on in Catalonia just now as well. And of course, we've got our old perennial favourite, the Greeks. We've got the Greek bailout discussion still to come, and I think there's more pain because the Greeks aren't daft. They perceive blood in the water. They're wanting out of whatever they've got.
Understood. So lots to look forward to. Maybe negative for the euro. We've seen a little bit of a sell-off over recent sessions.
Yeah, that was a little bit, and that's determined. One of the interesting things to be is the split in investment opinions that we see about Europe. We have a large number of people that think European problems will be exacerbated by the decisions that need to be taken over QE. You know, we are talking about the taper being announced later this month, next month, or certainly by Christmas, and withdrawing some of the distortion that's pushed up bond prices in Europe. But then others point to the European stock markets and say that they're very undervalued. And sure, on a capex basis, they do look so. But at the same time, if there's going to be another wave of crisis in Europe, do you really want to get involved in that? And then, of course, the week after that, we have October the 12th. Why is October the 12th such an important date, you ask? Because that's the day that I've thrown at a diary on the wall, and the dart landed on October the 12th, so that's the day we're going to get the real stock market crisis.
Look out for that, viewers. On that note, Bill Blain, thank you very much for joining us today.